Touchdown! He's all by himself. Fires into the end zone. Caught! Touchdown! What are they going to rule it? He caught it? Touchdown! He did what?
Hello and welcome to Empty the Playbook. My name is Dan Williams, and this podcast will be all about me and a few of my mates talking all things American football. We'll be giving you our takes on lots of different things in the off season and hopefully going into the regular season. But before we get started, I need to introduce you to one of my panelists, or one of the panelists. This is my friend Ed Thorns. How you doing, Ed?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show. I'm excited to talk some football.
Yeah, tell me about it, man. Especially now we're getting into the off season, we need to talk about something because we're still a while away from free agency and the draft. So I think this will keep me sane.
Yep. It's the best time of the season as well.
Yeah, honestly, I fully think I get more excited about this than I actually get excited about the normal season. Don't get me wrong, I love a Red Zone Sunday, but I think the off season is probably my favourite time of the year. All right, Ed, give the people a little bit about yourself, mate. Who are you? Why did you get involved in American football?
So I'm a postgraduate student at UEA, studying American studies, looking at athlete activism and politics, and in America especially. So that sort of came out of my playing for UEA Parks American football and being involved in like American style teams, same as basketball. So yeah, that's where I sort of started to play football and basketball, and I'm now studying mostly those sports too. So yeah.
Fair enough. For me personally, I never really got involved before American football, before uni with American football, but I kind of started watching a couple of years before I came because my dad is he's a very long surviving Miami Dolphins fan from the Dan Marino years. And that kind of is how I fell into it and started watching it on Sunday nights with him. And my first initial sort of situation or scenario where I found myself involved with the NFL was a family holiday to Disney in Orlando. And because I'd started watching it with my dad, he took me to what at the time, when it was Reebok rather than Nike, took me into a store and said, pick out a jersey, and it was either a Drew Brees New Orleans Saints jersey or a LaDainian Tomlinson Chargers jersey, and I picked the LaDainian Tomlinson jersey, and then the next day wore it around Disney, and my mum and dad went into a shop, and me and my brother and sister were waiting outside, and as we were waiting outside, this very passionate American man came up to me and started screaming, LT, baby! LT! We're going to the Super Bowl this year! And I didn't know what any of that meant at all. And that's how I started following the American football. And I can tell you that they didn't get to the Super Bowl that year because the Chargers aren't very good. But hopefully that's turning around now with well, to be fair, they were quite good at that time. It wasn't too far removed from LT breaking the single season rushing touchdown record, but still haven't made the Super Bowl. So there you go. Right, good, cool. So that's a little bit about us and a little bit about the show. So I don't know why I keep calling you Ed. Sorry, mate. I call you Thornsy because that's your real name. So we're gonna get stuck in straight away, mate. A week removed from the Super Bowl now, an absolute pasting. Let's be real. Chiefs never in the game, really at all. Tom Brady obviously has won his 7th ring, more than any franchise, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like the Patriots and the Steelers on 6, and Tom Brady's got 7 himself. So I'm going to chuck you a question straight away. Is Tom Brady better than Bill Belichick, or is Bill Belichick still better than Tom Brady?
I mean, I think coming into this year, the argument for everyone was, well, we have to see Brady win outside of New England. Like that's like before a lot of people who are like skeptical were saying he can't be the GOAT if he only wins with Belichick. So he's come and done that with Tampa Bay. But then I think it's easy to say that at the beginning of the year when people didn't know like what to expect from Tampa. But when they saw, I mean, one of the big takeaways was actually how good that roster was. This roster has been like the O-line, the running backs, the receivers, even the DBs, which are like a questionable spot, have come in and been sick. So I don't know. I think it's hard to look past the coach, which has won so many championships, and Brady. Like I don't know. I think it's still hard to separate them, really.
I couldn't agree more with you, mate. I think that's going to be an eternal question. Like looking at 20 years from now, 40 years from now, depending on obviously. Well, Brady has come out and said that he's going to be back with Tampa next year. So if he goes back and wins it again, I think that's definitely going to help his case versus Belichick. But what a lot of people don't realise is that Belichick, obviously he's won those 6 with the Patriots, but he's actually got 8 rings altogether. Because before he was with the Patriots, he was DC down in with the New York Giants. I say down, up with the New York Giants. No, it is down. US geography, whatever. Down in New York with the Giants. And I also completely forgot he was the defensive coordinator for Lawrence Taylor. Like, ridiculous. Isn't that mad? Like, he was the coach for Lawrence Taylor when they won the Super Bowl. And it's just absolutely mad. So, like, he done it there. Whether you can, I mean, that defense was class. But whether you consider, those were his rings. I mean, he won a ring with that team. And obviously, different scenario because he was the head coach for the Patriots. So he's got 8. Tom's got 7. Tom's coming for that 8th this year. But I also agree with you that like the Bucks, were they just a decent quarterback away from winning it anyway? Was Jameis sort of the weak link on that team? Too many turnovers,
Yeah, but I mean, Brady did play flawlessly, really, in the Super Bowl. So it's like you can't like. I don't think the argument that the Patriots and Bucks have been really good teams takes away from how good he is as a player. Like, so it's really tough to look. But I think that's like a problem with looking at an athlete through how many wins, like championships and everything they do. Like, it's so dependent on who they have with them. I don't know.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's just, and again, who's to say? Who are we to say? I just found it mad, and I just think, kind of like we said already, that Bucks team was good, but, he is that good as well, isn't he? Like, it's not a case of, like, him just coming in to shore up that team. He does just make the right decisions at the right time and makes those throws, and, it's just that good. I also thought it was just mad looking back that, like, the season of Hard Knocks that the Bucks were on is that like everyone thought they were going to win it then, and like and that's what 3 years ago, 4 years ago, something like that. And then they were like a dud that year. I think they might have gone 6-10, 5-11 maybe, which is just hilarious in hindsight. But oh well, they got the ring. Kind of next thing I think I wanted to talk about with you, mate. Do the Chiefs now have to draft O-line? Or do you think, because that O-line, man, Mahomes, do you see the stat that he was running for something like 400 yards or something ridiculous? Like, it's just insane stat. So, like, but you also think Mitchell Schwartz didn't play. Who's their other tackle?
Eric Fisher.
Eric Fisher, of course, didn't play. Laurent Duvernay-Tardif is opted out of the season, the right guard. So it's interesting because like this time last year they just won the Super Bowl, 32nd pick in the draft, and everyone was like, what do you draft for that team? It's the offense is disgusting, defense looks really good, and then they go out and draft Edwards-Helaire, and everyone's like, oh my goodness, this team is now unbeatable. Well, they've just been battered in the Super Bowl. So what do you think?
Yeah. Well, I listened to a podcast about this like a week ago, which was the Move the Six podcast. You know, Daniel Jeremiah, Bucky Brooks.
Yeah,
NFL
Bucky
one.
Brooks.
Yeah. And they said that the Chiefs just got way too cocky and they didn't run the ball anywhere near as much as they should. And like we're saying, how 32nd pick, they take Edwards-Helaire, they add to like an already incredible offense with a great running back, and then they just didn't use him anywhere near as much as they should have to like take some pressure off the passing game and pressure off the tackles and everything. And then there was another stat where they used 5-man protection on like 95% of their snaps rather than going to 6 and 7, which was obviously not working. So like, I think that the Chiefs just need to sort of look in the mirror and like sort of be humbled by this, and then they'll come back next year and play possibly better than they have before, really.
Yeah, I think it's like you'll almost forget as well. Like the Chiefs this season finished 14-2, when in reality that last game of the season they benched Mahomes. Well, not benched, but they rested Mahomes. Chad Henne played against the Chargers, so they could have easily been 15-1. And they were surely favourites to win that Super Bowl. And then, like you said, yeah, I didn't even realise. Well, you think like as well throughout the season, I would say from week sort of 7, 8, maybe even earlier onwards, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Damon Williams, Darrell Williams just don't get used as much, and they're just passing, and like they're getting used, in screens and things like that, because the Chiefs love coming up with all these creative plays. But that first week, I think Edwards-Helaire had like 100 odd, 130 rushing yards week 1, and then by the end of the season is rushing for, well, he's getting less than 5 rushing attempts a game, and it's just like, you just forget that the run game is so important to, and I think that's something that has also made Brady so good, is that he's known how to use his running backs, however much that is the offensive scheme of, Josh McDaniels or whatever. They've always known how to use those running backs. In that game where they came back against the Falcons from 28-3 down, he knew how to use James White that game, and James White, did bits. So, yeah, maybe they just did get cocky and just were like, Mahomes will figure it out for us, who knows? But yeah, it'll be interesting. The last kind of thing I wanted... Oh, go on, what are you going to say?
What was I going to say? Well, when they played the Bills in the season, this regular season, they did the same thing the Bucs are doing, like dropping all their coverage deep and then letting the linebackers sweep up, and they just ran it down their throats. And that's how they beat the Bills and were so effective there. So, yeah, they should have done that, or could have, but it's all retrospective and whatnot.
It is all retrospective, isn't it? And I mean, that's the thing, is that, both our teams, as obviously I'm a Chargers supporter and you're a Raiders supporter, so both our teams play in the Chiefs division. So don't get me wrong, like, this Super Bowl was weird for me, because do you support a team that's in your division, or do you support Tom Brady that just wins everything all the time? It was a weird place to be. And so, like, it's interesting saying, like, hopefully they come back and like do well, because they are in our division. But like that offense is just so sexy, really, isn't it? That you just love watching it, and just Mahomes week in week out is just mad. But yeah, and it's kind of like what Sean McVay said when the Rams were like one of the best offenses, if not the best offense that year when they got to the Super Bowl, and he almost outcoached himself. Is that he said he spent so much time in the build up to that Super Bowl, and you think they have that extra week off as well, which is almost like a bye week. Well, it is a bye week essentially, isn't it? And you just watch so much tape and different things like that in preparation for this one game. Whether the same thing happened to the Chiefs here, they just spent so much time trying to come up with this creative stuff or whatever. Who knows? But like I said, hopefully they kind of come back next year and play the same kind of football, because it's exciting to watch. I just hope they score less points against the Raiders and the Chargers.
Definitely. Preach.
The last thing I kind of want to talk about is, even at the tender age of, what is he, 43 now? Young Thomas Brady?
Yeah.
Around that mark. He still feels it's acceptable to be throwing the Lombardi Trophy across 2 separate boats.
Yeah.
Like, that is actually ridiculous. Like, and the whole week, like, I've only realised, looking up the photos again, that it was actually Cameron Brate he was thrown to rather than Gronk. just the automatic assumption that he's throwing that pass to Gronk is just ridiculous. And like, to be fair, even if that trophy gets dropped and it's Gronk, everyone laughs it off because it's Gronk, and they're like, "Ah, it's Gronk just doing Gronk things." If I'm Cameron Brait, I am sweating it out there. I'm like, you're borderline on the team now because we've got Gronk, and you're yeah. I think he's a very lucky boy that he caught that. But I'm sure he'll say never in doubt, like he always had it. But yeah, mad celebration.
Yeah, it was so cool putting it on the boat as well. Like, just whoever thought of that, kudos.
Yeah, absolutely. Kudos. Like, you know, you could have done the standard like parade through the city and everything like that. But it's Tampa Bay. They've got a fat ass bay, I presume.
I mean, COVID, isn't it? That's what.
Oh yeah, that thing too. Yeah, the pandemic. But
Big pandemic. One sec.
Right, cool. Okay, mate. So, as we kind of said at the top, that we're getting excited now for the off season, and we've talked about the Super Bowl, and currently there's nowhere else to start when you're talking about the off season other than a certain Houston Texans quarterback. The more I kind of read and the more I listen to it, the more I think he's going to stay. But that's boring. So we're not going to talk about that. I've got a list of a few teams that I think could be on the market. And again, he's made it boring because he's got a no trade clause. So he's basically deciding where he's going. But what I think is quite interesting is that as a trade's not happened yet, I feel like he's going to become warmer to more and more teams. He's obviously got his initial list of teams that he's okay to go to. And by the sounds of it, it's the Jets, the Dolphins, was the 49ers, but they've kind of said, we want to stick with Jimmy G now. But yeah, I think as it kind of goes on, and now he's lost JJ, obviously, as we'll talk about a bit later on. I think he's going to warm to a few more teams. What are your thoughts on where he's going to end up, my friend?
I think, yeah, firstly, when talking about Deshaun Watson, it's like, is he gonna go anywhere? You know, is he gonna give in, or is the Texans just gonna straight up refuse? You know, similar to I think it was Carson Palmer in like 2011 or 2013, something like that. He was basically in the same situation where he said he didn't want to play anymore, and the Bengals refused to trade him until like October, and then he went to the Raiders for I think a first and a second round pick. So we could see that sort of thing play out. But like, if you're the Texans, you surely have to think like, we've got like no talent on this roster. Well, there's talent, but like, you know, it's not a competitor.
No.
So surely, if you can get back like 2-3 first rounders plus more talent coming in on top of that, like you should take it, like, logically. So I think you can approach the Deshaun question from two angles and say, do you want it from a perspective of where would it be fun for him to go, or realistically, who can afford to go and get him? Like, that's how I've sort of done it. So I think it'd be quite cool to see him at the Panthers as an option.
Yeah.
I think that they've got a good offense. You know, if they bring back Curtis Samuel, to have him, McCaffrey, and Watson, and DJ Moore, and like a pretty decent O-line from what I can remember, would be quite a lot of fun. And also, I like the idea of him being in the NFC, so we could maybe see a Watson Mahomes Super Bowl, and they both have like equally good teams, because that would be fireworks. And the other team is the Broncos, because as an AFC West fan, you know, not ideal, but again, seeing him, Jerry Jeudy, Colin Sutton, KJ Hamler, all like Noah Fant,
I know you mean the tight end, yeah.
Albert.
Yeah, Albert.
Who was the third one? Was it Jake Butt? And they had a third one, I thought. Anyway, and they've got a great O-line, and you know, they can then, if they get Watson, they can add to their defense, and that would be a great team, which should make the AFC West like
even more
dangerous,
interesting,
but fun.
Yeah, the AFC West is arguably already the best arguably already the best division in football. So you add Deshaun Watson into the mix, playing Mahomes 2 times a year, playing Carr 2 times a year if he sticks around, playing Herbert 2 times a year. I mean, we say this, and being the cynical person that I am, obviously quarterbacks never technically play each other because they're only playing the other team's defense. But even so, Mahomes or Watson on the field at any one time during one game, you're absolutely right. Whether that is him in the AFC West playing for the Broncos, or whether that's playing Mahomes against Mahomes in the Super Bowl for the Panthers, and that Panthers team, that combination of Deshaun, McCaffrey, if he hopefully comes back fit, because I think the league missed him a bit this year, and that division as well. That division should have been more exciting than it was, but the Falcons died a death. The Panthers kind of died a death. And I had real high hopes for that division this year, but stuff happens in football, and that's what it is. But I really like those picks. I've gone a bit more boring with my picks, unfortunately, and I've gone kind of like you said. You can either go for what's exciting or what is going to make sense, and I like this and I don't like this. The Miami Dolphins, I do like it, and I think Deshaun, helps that team that's got an elite defense. And Mike Gesicki, I think, is the real deal. I really like Mike Gesicki. I think he's elite. I currently think he's probably the best receiver on that team. Devontae Parker, he's too inconsistent for me. And I like a couple other people on that team, but they just need receivers, man. And I think if they're going Deshaun Watson, which they should be, Deshaun Watson's, legit, and we don't know about Tua. Ryan Fitzmagic is hitting the open market. So, do you bring him back with Tua? You got to think about these things. But if they are, like I said, if they are going all in on getting Deshaun Watson, realistically, they're giving up that number 3 overall pick, aren't they? Really, giving it back to Houston, and that takes you out of the Jamar Chase, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle sweepstakes, all 3, pretty legitimate receivers that could really help that team. So whether you want to stick with Tua or whatnot, but logically, I think the Dolphins are in that. The team that I think, another team kind of similar situation, but it'll never happen because they're divisional rivals, is the Indianapolis Colts. It would make a lot of sense if they were in different conferences. Would make a lot of sense. But that just ain't happening. That O-line is elite. I think Jonathan Taylor showed us, not at the start of the season, but as the season went on, Jonathan Taylor can be the legit running back for that team going forward. Michael Pittman, I think, is the real deal as a receiver. I think he's very good. So that would make a lot of sense and would be very exciting. The other, con of having Deshaun in the Dolphins, well, I've kind of already said it, is that there's not a lot of receivers other than Gesicki, is that's the same setup he's got pretty much at Houston. Is that
true?
Do you know what I mean? He's not had, well, he did have elite receivers, and Bill O'Brien went, it'd be more fun if we had. Can you imagine? It's like they didn't even like Deshaun Watson.
It's baffling.
It is baffling, but I think he needs to get out of there. I think he needs a fresh start. And to be honest with them, I think they need a fresh start. If your star guy doesn't want to be there, that locker room that's already, missing their 10-year vet that's now decided he's gone, who was the leader of that team for so many years, I think surely you just want... And, you turn over that entire coaching staff, front office. The only person that's still there is the guy that owns it. Surely you just want a fresh start, man. And I do understand Deshaun Watson is elite, and top 5 QB? Would you agree? Elite, definitely top 10. Worst case scenario, top 10. I understand he's your franchise guy, but you just got to start fresh. And like you said, you got to think long term and get those assets. Yeah. But yeah, so we kind of talked about Deshaun. obviously, and I've already mentioned, the other franchise guy is gone. Mr. J.J. Watt, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, Walter Payton Man of the Year, only player in NFL history to get 20-plus sacks in 2 separate seasons. Where's he going, Thorns?
Okay. I think that a key thing for JJ, not that I know him personally or anything like that.
That'd be sick, to be fair.
Yeah, oh man. I mean, anyway.
He's doing his master's degree at UEA, joining the UEA player.
I'll get him on board. We'll be like UWE. Just get all these.
He'd just about make our D-line, to be fair. Our D-line was quite strong.
JJ Watt next year should go to this team in Norwich. Well, yeah, I think he has to go to a contender, really. I'll be interested to see how money influences his decision. Like, he doesn't, from like the way that he presents himself, he doesn't seem like someone where money is really a big factor. But then obviously, as an athlete, if you can get 15 mil a year, you go get 15 mil a year. So anyway, that's something I'd be interested to see. So obviously I've got the Steelers and the Packers. Steelers because of TJ and Derek, Packers because he grew up in Wisconsin, grew up a Packers fan, blah, blah, blah. I've also got the Buccaneers and the Bills as 2 teams with a great chance to repeat and obviously go get his championship ring. Mm-hmm. Or I've got something similar to what Calais Campbell did in 2017, where he sort of went to a less prominent team who became straight away like a big-time contender. So a bit sort of preempting what we're going to talk about later, but I've got him potentially Dolphins, Broncos, Chargers, Cowboys, Vikings, Cardinals. What of them teams were like, they're not really on that radar now, but like if JJ Watt turns up, a few good pieces around him and around the team generally, and then they're going to be big contenders next year.
What I'm hearing from you here, Thornsy, is basically if you can get JJ Watt on your team, you're suddenly a lot better, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah. I mean, like, what, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, comes back constantly from being injured. He's obviously a great leader. Like, you gotta get him if you can.
I will never speak ill of JJ Watt. I like him as a person, as a player. I think he's fantastic. He's a beast. This season, though, I'm just saying, and I know it was a Houston Texans team that was in turmoil, but I'm just throwing it out there for the sake of, stirring the pot. He was fit 16 games this year. He did start 16 games, 5 sacks. Do you know what I mean? But also, that arguably, for a normal player, those are good numbers. So, like, do you know what I mean? And it's a good sign for him, I think, as well, that in a season where he was on the field a lot, let's be real, like the defense was on the field a lot, especially in the first half of games. I had Deshaun Watson as my fantasy QB, so I was very aware that the offense didn't start until the second half of games. But he was on the field a lot and stayed healthy, which is a good sign. And I think that'll help him. If it's money that influences his decision, that's going to help him because he did stay fit this year. The way I kind of broke it down is kind of similar to you, starting at the top, dream scenario. And like I said, I have a lot of respect for JJ, and I think he's class. Derek used to play for the Chargers, so I automatically like him. And TJ was low-key robbed for Defensive Player of the Year this year, arguably. Aaron Donald, a beast, but, defensive tackle, defensive end, that's also the argument, is like, is edge a bit easier to play because you're just playing that tackle, really. Argument for another time. But TJ Watt, nonetheless, a beast. So, dream scenario, seeing a defense that has JJ and TJ would be absolutely class. And I'm glad they're not in my division. If he wants a payday, if he wants that kind of big contract before he ends his career, Jags, simple as, they've got the most cap. And for a team that's just about to hopefully draft, their franchise quarterback, like, I mean, we all know in reality that they will be taking Trevor Lawrence, especially after his pro day the other day where he threw very well. If he wants to go somewhere where, kind of like you said, is he preempting success? Is he going somewhere where he's going to get paid because they've got the cap to pay him? They're drafting, hopefully the franchise guy that is going to be very exciting, as he's been arguably one of the most exciting college quarterbacks ever, to a team that's got, receivers that aren't bad. DJ Chark I quite like. D.D. Westbrook, there's some guys there. James Robinson obviously showed that he can be class this year. So there are some offensive pieces. So, if he wants to go to a team that, like you said, might get good, maybe the Jags. Other kind of teams that I kind of suggested were based off of... I think there's a lot of, as you get older now, you kind of find, speaking as a 25-year-old, I tend to see a lot of NFL players that go places where they've had former coaches and different things like that, especially if JJ's an elite player, but these are more for rotational guys. Their careers dwindling down, but I think they like to go where their old coaches were, their D-line coaches. And so the other kind of two teams that I picked for this, his old D-line coach, the 2 years that he had his 20 plus sacks, Bill Collar, is the current D-line coach at the Broncos, and I think they've got 32 mil in cap space at the minute. So I think they could pay JJ, and if they can swing Deshaun, if they swing Deshaun first, because what is he on currently? 20 odd mil, something like that. His cap is.
Can't remember.
Something along those lines, anyway. JJ takes a little bit less. You think that team immediately now is naughty? We've already talked about Deshaun maybe going to the Broncos, but if you get Deshaun in with an offense that is probably a QB away from being pretty decent, like you said, the receiver core is fantastic. It'd be interesting to see what they do with Melvin Gordon this offseason, because I'm not convinced they're 100% behind him. But yeah, that offense immediately improves, and then you think that defense with Von Miller coming back, and then JJ on the other side. I can't remember if they play 3-4 or 4-3, but who did you say then? Sorry,
and Bradley Chubb as well.
Yeah, of course, and Bradley Chubb, who played very, very well this season. But they've also got to consider getting Justin Simmons back, because obviously Justin Simmons is just an elite safety. So it depends what you want, but yeah, I think if the Broncos can get him, I think that'd be quite nice. And his old defensive coordinator, I think he was a defensive coordinator 2016, 2019, but I could have my years completely wrong. In Houston, Anthony Weaver, he's gone over to the Ravens, and
interesting.
I think the Ravens could make a push for him, And I think kind of like they did, like you said, well, obviously you were talking about Calais going somewhere else, but they made it work getting Calais in last year and potentially retiring this year or taking a bit less money. I'm not too sure what the situation is there, to be honest. I haven't researched it enough. But if they can get enough money to get JJ in, I think that would be a really nice fit. And that immediately, if that defense gets even better, that takes a bit more pressure off Lamar, who had obviously took a step back this year from his MVP year the year before. But yeah, I think those are some really nice ideas about Deshaun, about JJ, and just to finish off this kind of little section of it, the Houston Texans, on a technicality, have one Pro Football Hall of Famer. Do you know who it is? And it's on a technicality because he played for him for a bit, one season. And the year was 2013, I think.
Andre Johnson.
Nah, not yet. Do you want a position?
Yeah, please.
He's a safety, and he made his name playing for another team, and he was at this team a very long time.
I might not even. Oh, Ed Reed.
Ed Reed, there we go. On a technicality, that's their one Hall of Famer so far. And I know are they the newest franchise? I think they're the newest. 2002, 2001, they were
Yeah, because they got David Carr.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, mad. But yeah, so Ed Reed's the one Hall of Fame. I found that out earlier and I thought that was really interesting. But yeah, those are what we think is going to happen to, well, I say what we think. Some nice places that Deshaun and JJ can go.
Yeah.
Right, okay. So heading into the kind of last bit of what we want to talk about today, Edward Thorns. I posed you the question of one team from the NFC and one team from the AFC that you think is a solid or good off-season away from being in next year's Super Bowl. Not necessarily winning it, because obviously we're going one NFC, one AFC, but just one good off-season away from making that Super Bowl next year. What did you find out, bro?
So two teams. Firstly, obviously the Raiders. They the thing is with the Raiders this year, they were like, I think it was after they beat the Chiefs or after they just lost to the Chiefs, one of them.
They beat the Chiefs week 5.
Yeah.
Something
they
like
beat the
that.
Saints, like, I don't know. It was like around week 7 or 8, I think. We'll say that.
Right, okay.
People were saying, not just people, but like NFL.com was saying, this is a team that could have legit Super Bowl aspirations like this year, like 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So like, they're not a bad, like, I think they ended 8-8 or 7-9,
8-8,
but they're not a bad team. Like they have that core, like, yeah, they have that core like there. And I really think, like, I may be biased, but I really think they are like a couple of pieces away from being a team that can contend. And I think if they weren't in the AFC West, it would be like a genuine, like, okay, this team could win their division. Like, so I think offensive consistency is going to be key. So they need to get a healthy, younger O-line and move away from veterans like Trent Brown missed a lot of games this year.
Right.
Rich Incognito missed a lot of games this year. And if they could get younger guys to come in and shore up that O-line, shore up the run game and get Josh Jacobs running and, really powering that offense, which is what I think John Gruden wants to do.
Yeah.
Then I think they need like a big body receiver to come in and play that like intermediate route. Someone like potentially Juju Smith-Schuster. There's been some like rumors that they're eyeing him for free agency. Or last year's rookie Brian Edwards, and see if he can step up and be that like sort of intermediate threat, because they've got the deep threat in Ruggs. They've got Renfrow, Waller. Like, they've got this stacked offense. They just need, I think, that type of receiver.
Yeah, Renfrow does like a 5-yard hook, and that's about it at the minute. You do need someone else to do it.
I really love Hunter Renfrow. Like, he's one of them guys in the NFL, and you're like, he looks like a normal guy. Like, anyone could do it if he, not take it away. He's supremely talented. But
I don't know how likely he is to listen to it, bro. But you can stick with your point if you'd like.
Just in case, I don't want to meet him and then him be like, "Oh no, you slagged me off on that podcast one time." So
yeah, yeah, Hunter, if you're listening, which you must be, we both think you're an elite receiver, and I think this 2021 is the step up for you, bro.
Yeah, you're an inspiration for 5'9" white guys with bad hairlines.
Does he have a bad hairline? No comment. I plead the fifth.
It's about the same as mine. So
okay, it's a good thing this is on a podcast and not on a YouTube video.
Yeah. Anyway, defensively, last year, right, the Raiders spent more money on backup quarterbacks than they did on their secondary.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
To be fair, I think, I don't know whether you're going to get into this or not, but I think Mariota's going as well. I think they've been kind of fielding calls for Mariota, so I think you might get something quite nice out of that, whether that's draft picks or whatever.
There were people saying they should trade Carr and keep Mariota as a starter.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, do you have opinions on that or not really?
Not really. I think Derek Carr is a very underrated quarterback, really. I don't really know whether, because the last 2 seasons they've started off really well for the first 8 games and then bottled it for the second 8. And I never really can tell whether that's like injuries or play calling or Carr himself not playing well. But anyway, I think he needs like one more year. And if he does get traded, I think he'll go somewhere and be a good player there too. So yeah. But anyway, defensively, I think stack up the D line, getting another big body to play alongside Mo Hurst, and hope that the secondary, like there's a lot of young guys like Trayvon Mullen, Damon Arnett, Meek Robertson, who barely played last year, and Jonathan Abram. I hope these younger guys sort of develop coming into like the second, third, fourth years. And then in the draft, just take the best player available, like regardless of fit or need or anything. And a name that I keep seeing, like you must get this when you watch the draft and you see like the same player always going to the same team in mock drafts.
Oh yeah, the one I keep seeing at the minute that seems to be a lock, and I couldn't even tell you really why, because well, I'm not a draft expert, but Gregory Rousseau from Miami, the edge rusher, always seems to end up at 14 going to Minnesota. And I just see that like basically every draft. I don't know why, and I don't know why I remember that, but there you go. But you're absolutely right. You do always just notice the same guy going the same play.
Yeah, I can't remember who it was last year. I don't even know if it actually happened and he went there, but still, it always. I think Christian McCaffrey when he in 2018, 17.
Yeah, it's quite often running backs, isn't it? Like Saquon, you just knew he was going to New York. Leonard Fournette, you knew he was going to Jacksonville. So, like, yeah, it's usually guys like that. There's just, they are just the fits, especially if they're an elite running back. But yeah, why? Who's this guy? Is it a guy you've been noticing for the Raiders?
Yeah, number 17. Almost, I think for every draft for the past like 5 drafts I've looked at, Jeremiah Owosu Koromoa.
Oh yeah, the linebacker.
Yeah, I think when you look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Devin White, Levante David, and the way that they played in the Super Bowl, this guy could be like definitely a need for the Raiders if he's still there at 17.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of linebackers that I think are floating around that spot, and I'm not going to get into it because one of the teams that I picked to have a good offseason I think would really benefit from one of these guys, but I think that kind of 17 to 30, maybe even like into the second round, there's maybe 2, 3, 4 guys, all linebackers, that are just could be real fixes for whoever, depending on the scheme, obviously. I know that always comes into play, but depending on who drafts them, I think could be legit guys. And I think that kind of happened this year with kind of the Chargers taking Kenneth Murray and the Ravens taking Patrick Queen, is that those guys show flashes. Both of them aren't the best in coverage, but like I think will, kind of like Devin White, exactly like you said, that second year jump for a linebacker where the game slows down and you can really see everything and really work on your coverage. I think those are 2 guys. I think Patrick Queen and Kenneth Murray, hopefully, obviously, make that jump. But yeah. Okay, so that was your Raiders kind of analysis, and it'd be interesting to see what happens with Derek Carr and Mariota. I really do agree with you. Who's your NFC team?
So literally going on from linebackers, second year jump, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Cardinals and their defense with Isaiah Simmons taking that second year leap. Like he barely played last year. Like he had so few snaps for the Cards. And then I think the first game they fully brought him into the offense was when he had the game season pick against the Seahawks.
Yeah.
So like he's definitely someone that, like, if they bring him in, they get him, they work out how to fully use him and use his athleticism and his speed. Paired with Chandler Jones coming back, paired with, where are they picking in the draft? Like around the 15 mark, maybe.
Yeah, I can't remember. Around there somewhere. Might be a bit later on.
Anyway, they can definitely get like a good corner. I don't know where it is, but they can look to get a corner, boost up the secondary, or go O-line. But anyway, however they do it, I think they've got so many good, talented players, like blue chip players on that roster already, that it's just finding complementary pieces, like a couple good O-linemen, maybe a new running back who there's like hundreds of in free agency in the draft. And just sort of continuing to see Kyler Murray get better and build the rapport with Hopkins and Christian Kirk and who's the other one they've got?
Well, Larry Fitz technically, but he's on the way out. And it'd be interesting to see if they do kind of make that decision to help Kyler more than go somewhere else, and whether you, like you kind of said, that decision is O-line or it's receiver or I don't even know who their tight end is. I can't think of the top of my head.
I don't think they really. I think it's like Max. They had Max Williams. I don't know.
Yeah, Max Williams, Arnold, was that? Did he play for them this season? And so yeah, maybe somewhere like that. I mean, everyone's talking about Kyle Pitts as the elite kind of tight end out of this draft, and I think tight end is one of those kind of weird positions where they could easily go. Like, I see mock drafts of him going top 5, and I also see like mocks of him falling towards like the late teens. So there's also that potential option of him falling if he's there, and it's a case of best player available, because he's one of these like hybrids where he is between a receiver and a tight end. I think, you know, it'd be really exciting for Kyler to play around with that and almost take a leaf out of the Chiefs book and like play these kind of like mad screens, but use Kyle Pitts in that Travis Kelce role where he's just so fast, and he, you know, his blocking, from what I hear, has got a lot better. I haven't seen a lot of his game film, but he does look like someone who's exciting. So it's it's interesting to see what happens to the Cardinals this year.
But I think as well, like it could really be like I think when Jameis Winston went into his 3rd year or 4th year, everyone was like, this guy's going to step up and now have a huge season this year, and it just went completely down the drain. And then, you know, Dirk Cutter got fired. Jameis had like 2 more mediocre seasons. So I think Kyler Murray's sort of on that, coming up to that stage where it's like, is he actually a franchise quarterback? Is Cliff Kingsbury the coach that we want? Like, do we spend all this money on him when he becomes a free agent, which I think is in 2 years?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's going into year 3, isn't he? Is that right?
Yeah. He drafted in 2019.
Yeah. Either way, yeah, he's still on his rookie contract either way, and yeah, the decision is coming up.
Yeah. So yeah, Cardinals, I think if they get the right pieces and Murray continues to get better, they could be a contender.
Nice, bro. I like it. I very much like your 2 teams. I think Raiders are a good pick. I don't think you are being biased, being a Raiders fan. I think, like you said, they have the unfortunate case where they are in the AFC West, same as the Chargers, where it's just everyone seems to be competing every year. Although obviously the Chiefs are far and above the rest at the minute, but I'd like to think that both our teams are going to be in that conversation this year, and I think, it'd be nice to see. And I really like Kyler, and kind of like I was saying to you before we started the podcast, that there was talk of Kyler Murray being MVP at the start of this year. First, 4 or 5 weeks of the season, maybe even, a bit further into the season. So there's no reason that he can't sort of take that over to next season. So the couple of teams that I've brought to the table, I'll follow the same pattern that you did. I'll go with AFC first. I'll give you the choice. Would you like AFC first or NFC?
We'll go AFC.
Well, there you go. It pains me to say it because I enjoyed watching them suck for the majority of my life. But I think the Cleveland Browns are very close, and I think that offense, I think Mayfield he grew up this year is what happened. I think he's the same athletically. His athletic ability has remained where it was. I don't think he's got a bigger arm or got particularly more accurate or anything like that. Well, he's got more accurate on the basis of the point that I'm making is that turnovers have gone down dramatically. They had 8 interceptions as a team this season, as in 8 interceptions thrown, which is tied for 6th in the league. which if you're not turning the ball over is just a massive difference. And so they were quite low. They were 27th in offensive passing yards, but combat that with the disgusting rushing duo that they have in Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt is just unreal. And I think they just figured it out this year of what to do. And I think, you've got Jarvis Landry, who had a bounce back year really and looked pretty good this year. Odell Beckham coming back. And yeah, I just think, you've got that finishing ability of Beckham coming back. And I mean, I think they also have quite a bit of cap space. They have I think they're on about 20 odd mil currently as of time recording. And but there's also decisions to be made, like Njoku's deal is finished, and if they cut him, they have no sort of they don't really have any dead money, not really. So, and he's on 5 mil. So there's decisions to be made there. So if they want a bit more cap space, but I think the real place that they need it is the defense. And it was hard to look at because I was like, where really is the fault in this team? Because the rush is good. Obviously Myles Garrett is filthy and very, very good. You've also got cover corner Denzel Ward is fantastic. And then you look at the linebacking core and it's god awful. That's where it was. And so yeah, I think that's where they really kind of need to address, but they need kind of this cover corner. I think they're kind of middle of the row in all kind of aspects of defense, passing yards and rushing. Rushing up front, they're quite good. They got Myles Garrett and Sheldon Richardson played well this season, and Larry Ogunjobi. Sorry, Larry, again, if you're listening, my bad.
We're alienating all the fans here.
But yeah, their run defense is pretty good. But I still think they need a guy that can cope with the run and can cover as well and really help out. Because other than Denzel Ward, there's not loads and loads of help there. And someone I did mention, that I really wanted to bring up is Grant Delpit, the safety out of LSU that they drafted in the second round last year. I think he's going to be legit. He's obviously missed the season through injury this year, but I think he'll be a really nice piece once he's fit this year. Hopefully, if he's comes back healthy, which is why I've obviously, like I said, gone with the linebacker position. I think 2 guys out of free agency that I would like to see Cleveland pick up. Matt Milano, if the Bills let him go. Fantastic cover corner and very good cover linebacker and good against the run. So really well-rounded. And obviously not someone that's going to steal any kind of limelight off anyone else. And they don't need to pay him loads and loads. So if they want to get him and cover another position, they can. He's going to be asking for 8 to 10 mil, maybe less. Maybe more. I'm not very good. I've never paid a NFL player. Otherwise, I could give more legitimacy to the numbers that I'm giving you. But I think Matt Milano would be a good shout. Another guy would be Jayon Brown, that's been playing for the Titans. Is a very good middle linebacker. Better against the run than I would say covering, but I really like him as a kind of true middle linebacker. And both of those two, I think, I got to be honest, I think the Bills will keep Milano and I think the Titans will keep Brown. But if they hit free agency, I think those are guys that the Browns have to be looking at. In terms of the draft, they're drafting 26th, and so guys that are going to fall there, and I kind of mentioned it earlier that there was a couple of guys linebacker-wise falling into this kind of area of the first round. You've got Zavon Collins from Tulsa, who I believe was voted Defensive Player of the Year or something like that in terms of college this season. I could have got that completely wrong, but I know he's won a couple of awards. Maybe whether that's linebacker, I don't know, or whether I'm not very good with the conferences in college, but he definitely won a couple of awards and seems to be the real deal. Or he's thought of quite highly anyway. And so he could be an option. And also, if they just want someone that's just going to run around the field and absolutely smash people and get in between the tackles to get some tackles for losses. Nick Bolton out of Missouri is a very fun guy to watch because he just one of these linebackers that if it's a run, he just gets the ball and he just goes through anyone. He's just light and quick. He's one to watch. So I think that's where Cleveland are kind of away if they just shore up both the run and the pass. Really, like it's not that they're particularly bad in either. And I think they just need to. I think if they can get a few more turnovers, I think that's the other thing as well, is that they were 21st in interceptions this year. I had fumbles, but I've lost it. If they can get a few more kind of turnovers this year, and they have the guys to do it, the Myles Garretts, and like I said, the Denzel Wards that can get picks and stuff like that. Because turnovers just win matches, man. Like, it's just ridiculous. So that's my AFC team.
Just quick. What do you think the Browns are definitely going to keep OBJ? Because there's been rumours, not rumours, but like speculation that he'll be going. And another guy defensively is Greedy Williams. Obviously, second round pick a couple of years ago, was missed the first 2 seasons, mostly because of injury, not necessarily because of bad performance. So, just adding on top of that, he's someone that could be a guy to watch for the Browns.
Yeah, and you know what? I'll go with Greedy Williams first, and then we'll come back to OBJ. Greedy Williams first, I thought was quite a good guy, that good athlete coming out of college. And so he'd be someone that I'd really want to do well. I think the Browns might be done with him. I think they got everything they can out of him. I think it'll be more of a cutting him situation rather than a trade-in. But I think that's quite likely. And it's a shame when, injuries just catch up to guys. And I think, unfortunately, before his career has massively started, even though Tua was 6-2 or 6-3 as a starter, something like that, that might be miles off. But he doesn't seem to be the same player that he was at Alabama because of that hip injury. So whether that is because of that hip injury or other factors, or he just doesn't have receivers that he's comfortable with yet, who's to say? But I think, it is a shame when injuries catch up to people, and I think, unfortunately, that is what's going to happen to Greedy Williams, is that he is just going to get cut. OBJ, I also think will get cut. Not cut, sorry, traded. Whew, that would be a claim. I think it's a tricky one because he's best mates with Jarvis from their LSU days. But another guy that's obviously been injured this year, and the offense got better when he was injured. Do you know what I mean? So for a guy that's your top earner, what do you do? Do you keep him around in the hope that, and I don't get me wrong, he wasn't playing bad, but I see him as, he's got fantastic athletic ability and he can play on the outside, but him and Jarvis are quite similar players, and if Jarvis can take that role in the slot, if you want a true outside guy that's, a Mike Williams-esque kind of player, or a Mike Evans, probably should have said Mike Evans first. But there you go. Again, a guy can only hope that Mike Williams is as good as Mike Evans.
Mike Williams is a baller. I remember watching the national championship game with him and Deshaun Watson. Some of the catches, it's incredible because he's like 6'5", 6'4"?
Yeah, 6'5", I think. Even though Mike Williams is a baller, couldn't agree more, and I think he'd be perfect for somebody. But I don't think I think he'll get traded from the Chargers because he's due 15 mil or something like that. Because obviously he was the 7th overall pick, and it's the end of his rookie deal now. So there'll be a decision there to make whether they want to pay him or let him walk and use money for the O-line, please.
Just in case the Chargers front staff are listening.
Yeah, just it. Tom Telesco, if you can hear me, O-line, please. If we can give Mike Williams and the 13th overall pick to go up to say number 3 and get Penei Sewell, that would be lovely, thanks.
Or even giving up the number 13 pick potentially some others and get Orlando Brown from the Ravens.
Honestly, I was thinking about Orlando Brown when it came out a few days ago that he doesn't want to stay at the Ravens because he wants to play left tackle. Perfect for us. Our current starting right tackle is Brian Bulaga, who likes playing on that side. And I mean, he was very injury prone this season, but still a solid tackle.
Okay. Anyway, we're completely off topic.
We're 100 miles away from topic.
NFC, what's your pick?
So obviously, just to finish off my AFC one, the Browns. No, it's all right. They just need to. I just think they need to shore up the defense and get a few more turnovers. But my NFC pick might be a controversial one, might not. And I personally don't like it, but I think it's kind of true. Is the Dallas Cowboys, who, like, even with their franchise, I'm putting it in inverted commas, franchise quarterback injured this season, they finished 7th in passing yards in the whole NFL, and Andy Dalton started 3/4 of the season, at least half. Yeah. So like, that team is just, the offense especially is built to play now. You think you got Cooper, Gallup, CeeDee Lamb, who's proven he's legit. They got their tight ends are earning quite a bit as well. So like Blake Jarwin and Dalton Schultz. Blake Jarwin's on about $5 million, and Dalton Schultz, considering he's only just joined the team, is on about $3 million. So that's just money that can go elsewhere, I think. But who am I to say? Because I'm not an NFL GM. Tom Telesco, hit me up. But I think that offense is class. That O-line is still decent. You got your Tyron Smith, you got Lale Collins, and you got Zach Martin, all still elite. Like, there's no questions about it. So they're sorted, and hopefully Zeke can bounce back and have a better year with his mate back. I think the Area's defense, they were not very good on defense this year. And I mean, they didn't get a lot of sacks, but the secondary really was kind of the issue. They finished 29th in passing touchdowns allowed. They finished 29th in interceptions, so not a lot of turnovers. I mean, they also did finish 31st in rush yardage this season, but whether you want to go up front and sort the run defense out, or whether you want to go and and I mean, they're notorious for having a struggling secondary anyway, so whether you actually want to finally address it is probably a good idea. I mean, Trayvon Diggs looked quite good as the season went on, so hopefully that's one corner locked in. If I'm them with the 9th overall pick, I'm going Patrick Surtain the second, or Caleb Farley out of Virginia Tech. Both look like pretty decent corners. The interesting thing here is, like I said, that offense is low-key kind of sorted. So defense, new coordinator coming in, Dan Quinn, Legion of Boom. So how much does the scheme change there? Do they want to play similar sort of way? This should bring back kind of the best from his rookie year of Leighton Vander Esch, who's kind of like dwindled out a bit, because you think that Legion of Boom thrived off of like Bobby Wagner, and I mean, Bobby Wagner's elite anyway, but like it was definitely helped by coaching elite linebackers, but it also succeeded because of having an elite secondary, and so I think that's kind of where they need to go. And there's a couple of corners out there in this draft. I mean, who's to say that Dan Quinn doesn't bring back his favourite son, Richard Sherman? Would be a nice pickup to coach some of these younger guys. So I quite like that kind of matchup. I think he'd suit being in Dallas. And I think Dallas are just a couple of defensive pieces away, especially now they've got Dak Prescott back. That they're a couple of pieces away from potentially, and you think as well they're in a weak division. And I know being in a weak division, it doesn't necessarily help you make the Super Bowl, but it definitely helps you make the playoffs if you've got a couple of pieces there, and that is an offense that I want to see in the playoffs. So get the defense sorted, Dan. Have a word, get some pieces in, and get your boys, America's team, back in the playoffs, because CeeDee Lamb is legit, and I want him to be there, and the rest of them can go with him. But that's my pick, the Cowboys.
Yeah. Do you think the Cowboys are definitely going to pay Dak then?
Well, yeah. Sorry, yeah. Something I didn't even address. I think they got who, surely. Like, that guy is sat on franchise tags now, and granted he's got injured this year, but he's just sat around. He's sat on that roster and worked his butt off to be on that team, and I think it'd be a very disrespectful to not pay him now. I think they are going to have to work some things out, and I think DeMarcus Lawrence might need to move his contract around a little bit, but I think they got to pay Dak. Yeah. In summary, what about you? What do you think?
I mean, the thing is with watching Dak is you don't see him as like Tom Brady, Pat Mahomes, like someone that can wow you with all these incredible things, but he just wins. Like, that's the thing that always stands out, is he'll fight for the first down, he'll make clutch throws, he'll make clutch plays, and he does just win for the Cowboys. So I think that's something they got to do. And I think as well, if they don't pay him, then someone will pay him however much he wants. Like someone that is potentially the Broncos, not as a speculation, but just someone that is just a QB away from competing will pay him if the Cowboys don't. So that's something they should consider as well. Yeah, I was just going to say as well, with Dan Quinn and the Seahawks defense, when he coached them up, it wasn't a team that built off of high draft picks. They're a team that sort of brought low draft picks in and sort of developed them and challenged them and made them into very good players. Like Cam Chancellor was a 3rd round pick, or maybe a 5th round pick.
Yeah, Cam was 5th. I can't remember where they took Earl Thomas.
Thomas was 1st. Sherman was 5th.
But yeah, I know what you mean. And quite a lot of the time, don't they? In that kind of the Pete Carroll era, really, they either take that very low pick or they trade out of the 1st round altogether, because they're just used to being that good, and they know that just acquiring young talent is just a good model generally.
Yeah, so that would be cool to see. And I think Dan Quinn as well, because of how bad Atlanta have been over the last 2 years, people have forgot how brilliant he was in his first 2 years, and obviously the Legion of Boom years in Seattle. So yeah, I'm quite excited to see him. Do that.
I couldn't agree more with you. I think, unfortunately, Dan Quinn hasn't been able to. Anytime anything's happened to the Falcons over the 2 years, everyone's been throwing it back to 28-3, and I don't think he's been able to get out of that shadow. But I think a fresh start now, hopefully, will bring back the best in him. He's someone that I wanted in for the Chargers defensive coordinator this year, because I just think he's a quality kind of guy, and I think that's what we had Gus Bradley last few seasons.
Very good.
Well, yeah, there you go. But we'll see how he gets on there. And but yeah, so I think Dan Quinn can be very good for the Cowboys this year, and we'll see how it goes. And to bring it kind of back and to finish off the kind of whole podcast, really talking about quarterbacks and Dak Prescott, is that it's really interesting that kind of this time last year there was not many teams that needed that quarterback, and it was the guys that were going to draft him, where the Bengals were going to draft their guy, the Chargers were going to draft their guy, the Dolphins were going to draft their guy, and after that was kind of it. It was 3 teams, maybe push up to about 4 or 5 this time last year that didn't need quarterbacks. This year it seems like half the league is ready to just throw their quarterback away. Like there's talk about Kirk Cousins leaving the Vikings. Russell Wilson has thrown his name into the mix, saying he's not happy about running round. And so
that's crazy.
it is crazy, and I think it'll be really interesting to see going forward. Right, nice one, Thorns. Thanks for talking to me, and I'll speak to you again.
Yeah, see you next time.
Touchdown!